Hi, I'm Regina Barr, speaker, coach, and consultant, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Red Ladder Inc. and the Women at the Top Network. Welcome to Spot On with Regina Barr. Today we'll be talking about the staggering cost of workplace politics. And joining me today is Cy Wakeman. Cy is a dynamic international keynote speaker, business consultant, and New York Times bestselling author. She's a global thought leader with over 25 years' experience cultivating a revolutionary new approach to leadership. With that, I'd like to welcome you to our program today, Cy.
Thank you, Regina. It's a pleasure.
You know, Cy, I have had the privilege of talking with you in the past about some of your other books, which we do have on display here. And I'm really delighted to be talking about office politics. And I think both of us know that office politics can be a huge problem in the workplace. Any idea of why that takes such a huge toll in the workplace?
You know, office politics are a great description of office drama. If you take out the word politics and inserted relationships, you would have taken the drama out of it, because simply politics are just relationships with drama. And in my research, and I'm a drama researcher, I have found that the average person spends 2.5 hours a day in drama in the workplace, and that's totaling 816 hours a year per head count per person in a workplace. And so when you think about the wasted amount of time and energy, the emotional expense, the waste that happens in the workplace at 2.5 hours a day, it's a profound impact on productivity and bottom line.
Well, Cy, I don't care who you are, that is a lot of money. I mean, I think here just what I could do with that amount of time. My gosh, it's amazing. So why do you think there is so much drama in the workplace?
You know, we've actually studied the sources of drama, and the number one source of drama is ego. We all have this human condition, we all have an ego, but most of us don't understand that our ego is constantly narrating the world, and it's a distorted view of reality. And when people believe everything they think, they actually are getting misinformation about the world itself, and they're making really inaccurate actions and assumptions and determinations based on that. So the biggest source of drama is when your ego comes out to play at work. And this isn't about narcissists. This is about every one of us with the human condition, because our ego is the source of all judgment. Once we start judging, we separate ourselves out, and that's where the stress and the suffering begin.
So, you know, how would you define ego for, the average person in the workplace? I don't think most of us walk around and saying, oh, my ego is getting in the way. I think we recognize when we see a big ego, right? How would you define what you're talking about here?
So ego, if you think about it, is like wearing a pair of prescription glasses, but they aren't an accurate prescription. It's our filter on the world. So the ego is constantly scanning the environment. And instead of just seeing a light switch, it's what adds the story. It's a black light switch. It's the ugliest light switch I've ever seen. And my contractor put it in on purpose because he didn't respect me. It's that story part of almost everything we see. And so the ego eats anger for lunch, and it's the part of us that stays constantly irritated. It sees insult where there isn't any, and it's the creator of all of our stories. So let's say my boss calls and checks on the status of my project and simply says, how are you coming with the project? I say I'm a bit behind. He says, I've noticed you're behind on a lot of things. I say, I've noticed that too. Will you help me? There's no stress or suffering as long as I'm not an ego. But the minute I make up the story that he's a micromanager and treats me like a child and I hate my job, that's when the ego comes into play. It's the writer of the story. It's the source of judgment. And our stress in life doesn't come from our reality. My boss calling to check on my project, it comes from the story we make up about our reality. So this ego is this constant narrator on life. And some of the best advice I have for people is stop believing everything you think. Okay. Edit your story. Ask yourself, what am I thinking, and is that true?
So I think you started to get into my next question is, so we know we have this ego. The ego likes to embellish the story and maybe embellish what's actually happening. So how do we keep that ego in check? I mean, what can we do so that we're not getting caught up in that ego and the drama that results?
The best antidote to ego is self-reflection. So, an ego is the part of us in our frontal cortex. The best part of us, where innovation and collaboration and all of those things are our natural state, are farther into our brain. And so what I teach people to do is to do ego bypasses on yourself and as a leader on other people. So the best ego bypass is a question for self-reflection. The ego avoids self-reflection, right? Because it uses venting, and venting is the way that 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 ego avoids self-reflection. Like, you can't self-reflect and vent at the same time. So venting's the ego's way to stay out of self-reflection, because self-reflection really is kind of death of the ego, and that's also the first part of accountability. So asking yourself questions like, what do I know for sure? And really meditating with that. All I know is my boss called. The rest about him being a micromanager and him trying to get me fired and him always disrespecting me, I made that up. And so it's helping you stick with a direct relationship with reality.
Well, I really like where you're going with that, and I'm a big fan of, the self-reflection, and I do try to avoid the drama. So, Sai, we are starting to wind down on our time today, and I always like to ask for a final tip for our audience. What if there was one thing that you would want to leave with them that they could do to make sure that they are not contributing to workplace or office politics, what would that be?
The best way to cut down on drama and office politics is to first be aware of how often your ego comes out to play. So when you're stressed, listen to what you're thinking and then stop believing everything you think. And then if you want a great question for self-reflection, a wonderful one is to ask yourself, what would great look like? So let's say that I did tell my boss I was late on a project, and instead of focusing on him micromanaging, I could get out of ego by saying, Sai, what would great look like? Great would be that I get back on my projects, I catch it up, I adjust the project plan, and I report out to him my progress. And because everyone knows what great looks like is what we judge other people with, and then all I have to do is just go be great.
Well, there you have it, folks. Remember to ditch the drama and focus on what would great look like. Thank you so much, Sai Wakeman. It's truly been a pleasure having you on the show today, and I will look forward to your new book, No Ego. And thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this show. Please like, share, subscribe, or comment. We really want to know what you're thinking, what topics you'd like to see on future shows, and how we might serve you better. I'm Regina Barr, and thanks again for watching Spot On with Regina Barr.